Welcome to this edition of Under the Bleachers. I'm Chris Ransom. Joining me is William Yanish.
Sir,
So,
what are you up to, Chris?
um, I'm getting ready for the Senior Bowl. We're recapping post Senior Bowl. Um, so that's basically what's happening tonight. Um,
I just got finished with my Jackson Dart evaluation.
yeah,
I
why don't
just
you
got
tell
another
us
couple
about
links to add.
Jackson Dart? Because many believe he was the best quarterback down in Mobile this weekend.
Well, after we watched it, three fumbles the first day. I'm not sure after that. There was
He
fumble in
had
the
another
game.
fumble in the game on Saturday too.
Yes, sir.
So
And that's really not looking good. I mean, that's four in a week, and I mean, as a running back, he would get benched in the NFL. So, but no, Jackson Dart, he's a good quarterback. He has hella IQ. But the things that I noticed, there was a lot of difference between 2022, 2023, and 2024. He was a starter for those 3 years in Ole Miss. After his freshman year, he was at USC. Before Lincoln Riley came in and Caleb Williams. And then he bailed after that and ended up at Ole Miss. In Oxford, Mississippi, and but this kid, I mean, first 2 years he was starting at Ole Miss. I saw this fire inside of him. Just this absolute fiery leader that would go toe to toe with any quarterback. And he did that in 2023. I believe it was maybe a double overtime versus LSU. Jaden Daniels and him just absolutely. I mean, tore up that game, and he walked away with the win. And it was just one of those things. He came so close in 2023 and to beating Alabama. But then I watched him in 2024 against Alabama, and I mean something had just changed, and it had only been a few weeks into the season. And I wrote a weekly article about one of his games, and you know I don't know. At some point, he lost confidence. I mean, he doesn't have the confidence in his arm. I mean, he watching him, with the wide receiver streaking up the sideline, he would throw the pass and it would hit the DB in the back. And I watched this like four times, and I watched similar plays where it was the same thing that happened. I mean, he lets the pass rush dictate how he plays in the pocket, and that's one thing is he should be the dictator. He is the one that should be deciding what happens when he releases the ball, how he releases the ball. But he was getting hurried, and it was just bad. But watching those go routes, it was like, is he trying to throw a go route or is he trying to throw a back shoulder? I mean, just watching it, and it was his. He's got this labored arm strength at times, and I can't help but be reminded of JJ McCarthy. And yeah, they can make some throws, but Jackson Dart, he suffers, you know, at with deep passes. When he is, in a clean pocket, he will absolutely, rip one downfield and nail, the wide receiver in stride. But it's one of those things to where it's like his confidence is gone. That fiery persona is just not there. And I'm trying to figure it out. I had a third round preseason grade on him, and I just watching the film. I reviewed five more games, so I've watched approximately 20 games over three evaluations. So that's almost
I don't
two
really see the
seasons.
fire with any QB in this class. Yes, I
No,
see the production, but the motivation, the drive, the burning desire to be the best, I really don't see that with anyone in the 2025 group.
and that's the problem that I have with Cam Ward. I mean, Cam Ward, watching him and Jake Hayner, in that bowl game that they played, and Jake Hayner, he just absolutely spanked him. and I didn't see any fire, like no fire. There's nothing like the Baker Mayfield kind of. I mean, well, he is kind of a outlier, but
Baker
just
and Schaefer are outliers when it comes to motivation.
yeah, and it's like somebody tells them wrong, and they just go out there to
You
prove
want
them
to see
wrong.
that every draft class. You want to see a player with the
Yeah,
fire Baker Mayfield had or the adversity, but
yes, sir.
it's not there in this year's NFL draft. There's like 2 players in the NHL draft. One has the motivation that Baker has, and the other has the adversity. But there's not a player with both.
Yeah,
That's I think Schaefer has the motivation the adversity Baker had. Carter Bear has the fire Baker had, but there's not a player in this draft that has both.
yeah,
Even though it's
and
nice that a few NHL prospects have some similar traits Baker had coming out of college. It's nice to hear that, but it's disappointing that you don't see that in this NFL draft class. I agree.
the only one in this draft class that has been an absolute whatever you want to call it is Cam Scatabo. And it's like watching that dude play. If he was a quarterback, I mean, that's like how I said, between the perfect quarterback prospect, you take Josh Allen's body and you give him Baker Mayfield's fire. And I mean, just what would happen? It's like, I mean, can you believe being that dynamic, being able to run like he does, just having that absolute size and rocket for an arm? I mean, that would be the perfect. I also mentioned one time Jimmy Clausen and Tim Tebow, and it's like if you put those 2 prospects together, like the fire and then the golden arm that Jimmy Clausen had. Jimmy Clausen just wasn't a leader. No one wanted to follow him. Steve Smith broke him the first week he was there. Getting him to bring the Cactus Cooler soda from there, and then just absolutely dogging on him because Jimmy Clausen was a cocky, arrogant, kind of kid. He just no one wanted to follow him. But if you take Tim Tebow's heart, Tebow, and put it in Jimmy Clausen's body, I mean, you would have another, hella prospect. And it's just like you said, this draft class, and that's what they showed all year was nothing. There just isn't that kind of player, and I rank that, up here when it comes to evaluating prospect. The heart that they have in their chest is absolutely irreplaceable.
Agreed.
But yeah, dude. I mean, what else we got going on in football?
I mean, there
We
are
got
some players. There are some players I like, but like really the 3 players you put in the thumbnail for next week's show are really the only players I consider blue chip players in the draft. You could make an argument for Ashton Ginty because of his pass blocking, but you could also make a counter argument that he's not the best downhill runner, north, south, east, west as well. So, but
Sure.
yeah, Hunter, Abdul Carter, and Will Campbell, I would argue those are the blue chip players of this draft class. Those 3. I do like Will Johnson a lot too, and Ginty, but those would be my top 5. And I think those are the only 5 that have blue chip upside. The rest are guys who could develop into Pro Bowlers or who could develop into high-end starters, but I don't really see them as blue chip players. And I think you'd be in agreement with me. Those are probably the 5 closest to blue chip status, but it does feel like even though last year's draft just had way more blue chip talent in it compared to this one. So to expect this draft to match the level of talent last year's draft had, I just don't think that's a realistic expectation.
For sure. And I definitely feel that, I mean, we saw some players this last week at the Senior Bowl, that absolutely stood out, a pair of flex slot tight ends, and Harold Fannin Jr. and what's his name?
Jr. had a big game in the Senior Bowl. He had that play that almost looked like a touchdown. I mean, there are people that think he's going to drop the second or third round because his pass blocking is suspect and his height. He's 6'3". Isaiah Likely was 6'4", but I see a very similar, almost identical player to Likely. Maybe he's not as tall as Likely, but from a trait standpoint, from a production standpoint, I see a very similar player to Isaiah Likely. And
Isaiah Likely, I loved him coming out of Coastal Carolina, and like I said, Harold Fanta Jr., that really, it did look like a touchdown.
yes,
I mean,
Kansas plays
just the way
Fresno
his foot.
State. I know that because I've got this ticker thing here, and it's got some of the college football games for next year. Buffalo faces Minnesota. Nebraska faces Cincinnati. I might have to write some of these notes down for like a future Under the Bleachers season 2. Like, this is your preview, ladies and gentlemen. East Carolina Pirates versus the Wolfpack. I remember that game 2 years ago. It was, I think it was decided by a field goal the last time they met at North Carolina State. Jacksonville State plays Central Florida. I don't know why the Golden Knights logo.
Oh, they don't like being called Central Florida, man. That's what
Stephen F. Austin plays Houston. I'm just trying to. I know Ohio State hosts Texas in the season opener, but Tennessee Martin's going to play Oklahoma State. 203 days, 1 hour, 58 minutes. I'm guessing these are like the Thursday night games. I'm guessing that's a Thursday night game. Kennesaw State plays Wake Forest. But yeah, I'm looking at some of these. Mike Green was so dominant in the practices, the Marshall defensive end, that he didn't even show up for the Senior Bowl. He was so dominant in practice. Wagner faces Kansas. Jalen Daniels versus Wagner. Alabama versus Florida State. I mean, I would have loved to see Jalen Milroe in Tallahassee had he came back. That would have been an environment that really would have tested him early in the season. But yeah, that is one of the openers. But the big opener for next year is Texas at Ohio State. Auburn plays Baylor. That, I think, is a big game. Well, I don't know. But Auburn in Waco, Texas, how are they going to perform in that environment?
That's one thing about Peyton Thorne. I did an evaluation on him and had him, rated as a high-end backup. The only thing that he was really lacking was, good arm strength. He had just enough arm, and this year, he came out in that system and he did really well. And that's one thing for Auburn. They generally, with the outlier being Cam Newton, don't get very far. But that kid, like I said, he can be a backup in the league, and he's got enough football IQ. I watched him for a couple of years.
Yeah, I can't wait until next year's college football season, because they're giving you like college basketball updates of what players hit 2-point, 3-point shots. So to have that for football next year, when the games start around noon, that's huge, because then we'll have like live game updates as they're happening on the Saturday shows. But I mean, outside of Mike Green and Harold Fanta, we got to get to the third player, the MVP of the Senior Bowl, Jack Beck. He was just in the zone in that game, and it was just a great ending, because I think the last game that had this type of ending was 2015, where I think a Yale running back scored in overtime. And this was, because they started the game at 4:30 before Nagy took over, and then the game ended at like 7:30. And it was just very, very late, that 2015 Senior Bowl, but it had a very memorable ending. And this game, probably the most memorable ending since 2015 in 10 years. And that is saying a lot. Even though it doesn't sound like a lot, it is saying a lot. Because this was before Baker entered the league. This is before some of the other QBs in the 2017 draft when Mahomes was drafted. That's kind of what you're looking at.
Yep. And, the Senior Bowl has become, actually, with their week of practice, 3 days, whatever, a practice before the game, has become the premier off-season event. I mean, there's the combine with them running around in shorts doesn't say a whole lot, and I mean, that's just stuff that goes on paper. But what happens in this game? I mean, the last 2 years had Jake Haener as the MVP, had Spencer Rattler you know, as the MVP. They were both my quarterbacks too, you know,
I'd
in
like
their
to thank
respectable
you.
years.
I'd like to thank
QB2s.
Brian, the host of the Cheese Talk podcast. I got a phone notification on my phone that he retweeted our show. So I'd like to quickly thank him for doing that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thanks, man. That's awesome. But
If you
yeah,
want to
dude,
do a Packers 49ers show with William next year, Brian, hit William up or hit me up and we'll make that happen.
that I like things like that, especially when it comes to the Packers. at least they're not as bad as how we feel about the Cowboys. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
they're like the diplomatic rival, and the Cowboys are, well, they're the Cowboys. I think
Yeah,
both the
well,
Packers and 49ers fans love to roast the Cowboys equally in that respect.
yep. I respectfully will not make the show PG-13 rated
All right.
today.
I admire and respect the professionalism.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So yeah, man. You know, I mean, and I'm going to be doing a Cam Ward evaluation coming up. My next two are going to be Cam Ward and Travis Hunter. You know, and that I feel those are going to be two to, you know, get a few views on.
Yep.
And you know, it's going to be interesting. You know, I've heard a lot of people say, you know, I've heard a lot of people say that, you know, there's not really a first round quarterback in this class, and I mean that's not far from.
Well, it's not that there isn't a first round quarterback. I just think more people, like right now for the 26th draft, Arch Manning's projected to go first overall. Garrett Nussmeier's fourth. And then you have Lenore Sellers at 16 in the mock I read on Walter Football. But I think guys like Aller's going to end up getting picked ahead of Sellers. I do like Sellers, but I also think with Sellers, he's in that tier with Nico Imaleva where you're uncertain as to what you're getting, William. You're encouraged by what you're getting, but you're uncertain what the final product is going to be. And
yeah,
I get it.
For sure.
He has the cannon arm, but he's basically Anthony Richardson without the ability to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 like Richardson had at Florida. That's basically what I see with Lenore Sellers right now. I would probably go Arch Manning. I would probably put Nico Imaleva at 2, yes. And then I would put Nussmeier at 3. But I think you could make the argument that all 3 QBs belong in the top 5 next year. That's why next year's group is much better than this one. And then I would probably put Aller where Sellers is. And then after those 4, I think it's really up in the air as to who goes where. Because you can make an argument for Klubnik. You can make an argument for Sellers in round 1. You can make an argument this or that. And I think it'll be a really fun class. But it's also one that's going to be up in the air to a degree.
Yeah. And, you know, that's one thing with where I had Nussmeier rated this year. You know, preseason right off, you know, I'd have him at number 1. And then number 2 would be Nico, and number 3 would probably be Sellers. Aller, like you said, Aller is
what about Arch
a tough
Manning?
Player.
You know, a lot of people. Arch Manning's in the 26th draft if he declares, but there are some people that saying he needs to go back for 27 because he doesn't have that 2 full years as a starter yet, and that's the other thing with Arch Manning. I mean, he got a few games of starting experience this year, but it was mainly Ewer's team when he was healthy.
Yeah, and you know that was one thing. Ewers was never going to lose that job last year, and like I said, I completely respected that he came back to Texas, and you know, with Arch Manning there, I've said that before, but Arch Manning and the name of development and all the things that have happened in the last few years, you know, Anthony Richardson, the Bryce Youngs, you know. That
I think some people are on the fence about Manning because they want to see what he does in his first start against the Buckeyes at the Horseshoe next year. What does he do in that game to assert the hype, or does he play so poorly that he kills the hype of being that top guy?
Yep. And that'll just be the truth of it between scouts and between coaches and general managers and such.
If he plays
that'll
better than
absolutely
Ewers
be the
against
truth.
Ohio State in that environment, I think he's QB1. And if he doesn't, Well, there's going to be some questions. Does Nico belong here? Does Messmeyer belong here? I think that's really what.
Nussmeyer has absolutely killer football IQ,
Yeah.
and like I said, the media will do its thing, but just everybody, I stress, don't listen to them. Watch the film, and don't watch highlights. Go, put in offense and versus whoever in that year. Watch the actual game film, and that's what I provide for evidence in my links, and it's because all 22 films. Yeah, sure, that's great film. Yeah, they follow me on Twitter as well, but public access. That's what we go for, so everyone can see what I'm seeing. What I graded, this player off of, and it's never off highlights. Everyone has good highlights, and it's just one of those things that, to be absolutely correct, go and watch a film and just learn, the game, and then come talk about it with us
Yeah,
in the future.
exactly.
We'll be waiting. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, next year's quarterback class is looking so much better. Just
Next
absolutely.
year's all of the drafts next year outside of I don't know. The 2026 NHL draft, Jerome McGinley's son's projected 31st, and Jerome McGinley was a legend with the Calgary Flames. So his youngest son's projected to go 31st out of 32 teams. That tells me next year's NHL draft might be better than this one. And I think Ron of the Steel Flyers podcast called the next two NHL drafts loaded. And then 2027 has defenseman Landon DuPont, who is the first defenseman since Aaron Ekblad sworn into junior hockey at the age of 15. Ekblad went number 1 in 2014 to the Florida Panthers, who won last year's Stanley Cup. So the next 3 NHL drafts look strong. I would argue the next 2 NFL drafts might be better than this one, because you have the 26 class, and then 27, you got Dylan Raiola of Nebraska and DJ Lagway of Florida. Both of those two made really strong impressions as freshmen. And the only other true freshman that started was Zach Wilson's younger brother, but he did not look good.
I was just thinking that. No, he did not. And well, he's not at a very good school.
Julian
but, staying
Sand's a
home.
wild card, because I've seen some early 2027 mocks with Julian Sand, the Ohio State quarterback, at 1, but he redshirted basically this year behind Will Howard. He will probably be the starter. Him and one of the other freshmen will compete for the starting job, and it'll be him and Bryce Underwood. Those will be the 2 young guys at Michigan. Those true freshmen. Those will probably be the 2 young guys that could end up being surprises next year in college football.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that's definitely one thing to watch. And I mean, do you start on a different subject here, but how do you see, this running back class? I mean, it absolutely looks legendary from what I've seen.
This running back class, D tackle, running back, and are the 2 positions where I think there's talent in rounds 1 through 7. That's how deep those positions are. And I think you could make an argument for defensive end, corner, safety as well. It's a very strong draft at those positions. I think it's at least 4 or 5 rounds deep at guard and tight end too. So I do think there are some positions where this draft is strong at, but it's also, if you're looking for a draft that's deep at quarterback, deep at left tackle, deep at wide receiver, this isn't it. You're going to want to wait until 2026 or 2027. I'm sorry to hurt your feelings. 2027 has like 8 receivers projected to go in the first round. It's still a good draft class, but it's good at certain positions rather than others. And that's the big thing with the 25 draft. And look, I think the 2025 NBA draft is the strongest of the 5 or 6, but it's a bear market. It's like I told Joey, it's a bear market for a lot of drafts in 2025, because we've been spoiled with so many good NFL drafts from 2017 with Mahomes to now. We've been spoiled with really good NFL drafts as fans. We've been spoiled. I think 25 was a bear market for draft years. I mean, there are some guys I like in the NHL draft, but even the guys I loved heading into the preseason are all projected to go in the top half now. And I think 2025 outside of the NBA, maybe the MLS, where 7 teams had the number 1 guy on their board. It feels like a bear market for draft classes because, I mean, there a lot of players. There were more freshmen than sophomores that won awards in college baseball, William. That's why I say that the 2026 MLB draft might be stronger than this year's group, even though this year's group is a lot better than I thought it would be. Because coming in, I'm thinking, okay, there's no way we're going to have a number 1 pick as good as Bazana or Paul Skeens. And while that may be true, the more I scouted the baseball draft, the more I came away impressed with the guys in this year's upcoming class. So there's going to be guys who slip through the cracks in football, hockey, and baseball this year that end up being steals. I've told Colton that. He agreed. You agreed. So I'll just leave it at that. But as far as 26 goes, and the other thing is 2024, you had the WNBA draft. You had Caitlin Clark, and her rookie card was worth more than Caleb Williams' rookie card. Like
I remember seeing
card. There was a trading card expo I went to after the draft last year, and the Caitlin Clark rookie autograph was $100 more than the Caleb Williams rookie autograph. And both cards were like, I think one card was $250 and the other was $350. It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd rather have it. You thought it was funny that the Caitlin Clark rookie autograph was worth more money than the Caleb Williams rookie.
I'd rather have the Caitlin Clark. It just one of those things. I mean, you don't see players like that come along too often. Like, you know how she is, and then what they did with her, you know, snubbed her in the Olympics because maybe she wasn't one of the best players, and it's like, well, you know, she did pretty damn well. You know, and it's like it's one of those things. She should have been there in the Olympics.
Getting more popular, but until Juju Watkins is draft eligible, whether it's 26 or 27, I don't think we're going to see a player of Clark's level enter the WNBA draft. It's not that there isn't talent. There is talent, and I would put the WNBA. Honestly, you could make an argument it's the 3rd best draft after NBA and MLS. 2025 is just a bear market for draft years, and there's still guys that are going to slip through the cracks in these draft classes this year. It's not horrible. Yep. It's not as horrible as I anticipated it would be because I did more research, and there's going to be steals. I'm telling you, there's going to be steals this year.
Yep. And I would just like to, you know, inform the Broncos.
So if you're heads down, don't keep your head down. There's an opportunity for you to move up if you perform well in these interviews at the combine, at your pro days. There's an opportunity to move up because after the top 16, it's wide open. This first round is wide open. That's what a lot of scouts are saying.
Yes, sir. And it's definitely one of those things, man. You know, but like I said, the Denver Broncos, they're not drafting running back. You know, we'll add some disappointment in there for my home state. You know, team there.
I don't know about that. They got Audric Estime in the 5th round, and they've got Jaleel McLaughlin. I do think they'll take a look at a running back, but the value's got to be there. It's got to be a situation where a guy in the top 50 falls to the late part of the 3rd round, like a Quishon Judkins or Omarion Hampton falls to the late 3rd round. Otherwise, they're going to roll with what they have and get a running back in day 3.
It would not be an Alvin Kamara type back, like a receiving back. They have Blake Watson, and you know that's what Peyton saw. He said that in the preseason, and then, you know, tried to stash him on the practice squad, or did.
Blake Watson, I don't think he's anything special. He'll be the 3rd string running back if the Broncos don't like any of the running backs in this draft. But if somebody like Judkins or Omarion Hampton fell to the end of the 3rd round, I think Denver would take a running back at that point, with Peyton wanting to make that guy the Kamara of the Bo Nix offense.
The one thing that I can see is McLaughlin. He is a restricted free agent, I believe.
Yeah. So,
you know, I mean, if he did see somebody that he really liked, and like I said, this draft is a pick your poison when it comes to running backs, and you can get starters in the 7th round, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, but no, I like Blake Watson. You know, he has almost that, not that legendary Le'Veon Bell kind of patience, you know, but there were flashes of it, and he can catch passes out of the backfield. You know, he can hit long runs easily. He can get around the corner, and like I said, I think he is a solid NFL running back, and I I think Peyton will put him to work, and Audric, Estime is just a good player. He ran a slow 40, and it kind of knocked his draft stock down, but I believe he was still a steal in the 5th round. So
Yeah. So what's coming up on the next 5 shows of 5 live streams? I'll give you a preview. Tomorrow, Utopia Football Insider at 9 p.m. Oren and I are recording that. Saturday morning, Super Bowl preview. So basically, tomorrow's show and Saturday's show are the same. It's just I'm with Oren breaking down the Super Bowl tomorrow night, and then Saturday morning I'm with William and Joey. We're going to preview the Super Bowl. We'll go through the game write-ups on Giraffe Utopia in their entirety. Oh, and my older brother Andrew is calling in at noon. Noon Eastern. He's on the West Coast. He's calling in. He actually told me to send him the link to this stream at 11:30 a.m., like 30 minutes before, so that he can get ready before he joins the stream. So you'll be able to ask him questions. He went to Berkeley for music. I do have a guitar. I could play if I could attempt to play the guitar as he comes on as like an intro. But yeah, I would.
nice.
I feel like Joey would roast
it up, bro.
my vocals. My vocals. I feel like Joey would roast my vocal tonality if I tried that. But yeah, and then next week, William and a friend are going to do an NFL mock draft. I'm going to mediate it. I mean, I could do a mock draft myself, but I'm also working on a lot of stuff like the MLB draft, and I'm also working on an MLB mock, and I'm going to I'm going to be updating the NFL and WNBA mocks in the coming days. I might have to put those on hold with the NFL Combine coming up, because I know the NFL Combine's at the end of February. I haven't set up the web pages for the Combine yet. The list came out of who's participating in it, but I may have to archive last year's Combine and set up this one after the Super Bowl too, because those take 2 to 5 days. Those take 2 to 5 days just to code and get all the names in, and then the weigh-ins from the Senior Bowl. That it takes a while to get those up, but once those are up, and we'll try to have a show for each day of the Combine too, because I know the Saturday I know February 22nd is the start of the MLS regular season, so that's why February 15th, next Saturday, I am going to do an MLS preview, but we're going to push the MLS preview on the live stream back to like noon, and then the first 2 hours it'll be it'll be a thumbnail. Maybe we'll have a thumbnail of the new Draft Utopia logo that's being presented on Friday for the 10 a.m. to noon portion of the show. And and people can comment whether the current logo or the new logo is better. And William can preview the Commanders, Bills, Chiefs, and Eagles with us, because those are the only teams we haven't done off-season outlooks for as far as the contracts go. Mm-hmm. We pretty much have gone through either team. And with the Super Bowl on, I just want to have fun on Saturday. I really don't want to get into contracts with the big game coming up.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So that's why I'm thinking we'll do the NFL contracts for the Commanders, Bills, and then the 2 Super Bowl teams next Saturday, because we'll know the draft order by Monday. We'll know the draft order. So late Sunday night, as the Super Bowl ends, we'll know the official draft order. So that's why the mock draft's getting pushed back to next Wednesday. And it's why really the MLS preview, because I do want to do an MLS preview, but I think the first MLS game starts February 22nd at 2:30 Eastern. And if we did one conference, there's a chance the previews overlap into the 2:30 game next Saturday. So Joey and I will preview all 30 MLS teams, but that'll be at noon. And then the 10 to noon hour, it'll be me, Joey, William, and I breaking down the teams. But that's next Saturday on the 15th. We're not going to go into the details for how we're going to set that live stream up yet. We'll take it one day at a time. But those are the next 5 shows going on. And then the week after that, I want to do like a battle of the draft simulators where William and Joey and myself are competing against each other in NBA, NHL, and NFL mock drafts, and whoever gets the most points gets to post their mock draft at the end or something. And it would be
Nice.
formatted just like the game show Guts on Nickelodeon. That's how we would do it. So if William picked for an NBA team, Joey picked for an NBA team, I picked for an NBA team, whoever had the best mock among our readers, they'd get 300 points. Second best would get 200, and the person who finished third would get 100. And then whoever had the most points after those 3 drafts would get to post their mock draft as a reward at the end. And if you don't want to post a mock draft, you could do a scouting report, William. You could do a scouting report of a player and your choice on the show, and Joey and I would listen. So
that'd be awesome too.
You could figure that out, but that would be for the 22nd. That'd be like a fun show before the combine, and then after that, William and Joey could talk about whatever if there's still time. And then the March 1st is the day of the combine. March 1st is the Saturday where the QBs throw, and we might have to schedule some combine shows, but like we pretty much know what we're going to talk about for this month anyway. I don't know how we're going to build on that, but we pretty much know what we're going to do for the month of February. But anything you want to say before we wrap this up?
Let's see. Towards the end of February, we'll probably have Daniel Kelly on as well. That'll be an interesting show. We'll probably do a draft prospect or maybe talk some quarterbacks, see what's up with him, and that'll definitely be fun.
I agree.
That guy can fit a whole lot of words into 30 minutes,
Yeah, it makes my job easier because I can just sit back and listen, absorb all the knowledge like a sponge.
Yeah. That's what I do around you. I'm like, holy shit. Yeah, it's just, yeah, I don't have that kind of brain power. I
did get groceries yesterday. I got ribs. They were really good. I had I got 12 ribs, but I took the bones off 4 ribs and I put them on a bun and made a sandwich. And then I ate 2 more ribs. And then I had like 6 ribs after that. They just got hammered on ribs. I could never stream myself eating ribs because if I did, there would be barbecue sauce all over the keyboard. We're not going to have that. It's not a professional look. It's not a professional look. Believe me, it's not good for your brand.
You got a little something on your chin, man.
Yeah. I do have food for the Super Bowl, though. I got I got Auntie Anne's pretzel dogs and the regular Auntie Anne's pretzels. 6 things of fish, frozen fish. I've got buns. I've got Doritos. 2 things of Cheez-Its and then Cheez-It snack mix, Cheerios, Jimmy Dean breakfast bowls. I've got like 10 or 8 of those. Spin art dip for Tostitos scoop. So I've got more than enough food to get through Super Bowl weekend.
Gonna be a few pounds heavier afterwards anyway.
Yeah, if I eat all that, I'm gonna be a few pounds heavier. If I conserve myself, I don't think I've ate since breakfast. If I conserve myself, I'm gonna be okay though. Probably should get something to eat after the show. We're at 41 viewers now. We were at 20 to begin. Somebody in the chat room sent something here. Oh, it's one of those people on Kick saying, hello, I want to help you get 1,500 followers on Kick. I really don't use Kick, okay? To be honest with you, I just live stream the show on Kick. I really do not go on Kick very often. I just live stream the show on Kick.
Yeah. That's just
Twitch too. I live stream on Twitch, but I really don't go on Twitch. I go on Discord more than I go on Twitch, but we do have a Draft Utopia room on Discord. I could show us that on. I could show our audience that on Saturday if you want, because I do have a Discord. I just don't know how to build that up because I know Discords are popular and there's people that go in rooms on Discord to chat about stuff, but I do have a room and it's got an NHL, NFL, NBA, MLB, MLS draft room where people can just go in and chat about prospects. It's there. And we don't even have to, I don't even have to be present. We just need to get more people into that room that want to talk about sports. And if you join, we will answer any questions that you post in the Discord room for Draft Utopia on the show.
Always.
I think that's my next goal is trying to build that Discord room up because we're at almost 10K on Twitter and we're at two followers on Discord. We have a private Discord room for Draft Utopia that me and Gracie, who does like a lot of live game clips, and she's really popular on YouTube and TikTok. Those are the only people in that room on a Discord. So I do want to try to get the Discord room, and maybe I'll put the new Draft Utopia logo. We'll put that on some shirts at we'll put that on some t-shirts at the Teespring store I have. I do have a Teespring store where you can buy Draft Utopia stuff. We might put some Under the Bleachers stuff there too, and Utopia Football Insider. Just so if William or Warren ever wanted to get some merchandise, like a Under the Bleachers hat, t-shirt, whatever, iPhone case, whatever you wanted to get for your brand, we could put that up there and make a little extra money for the brand. But we'll figure that out later. What else is there to talk about before we sign off? Oh yeah, Carson Beck's in the 26th draft too. He's taking over for Cam Ward.
He's got some work to do.
Yeah, and the Florida Gators go to Miami. Remember, Florida hosted Miami in the opener this year. Next year, the Florida Gators and DJ Lagway go to Miami to take on Carson Beck. And this game, unlike this year's game where Cam Ward blew out the Gators and Lagway was on the bench, this game's going to be a lot closer. And if Lagway didn't get injured against Georgia, he might have beaten Carson Beck. Florida led 10-0 before Lagway got injured in that game. So
yeah,
it's possible that Florida goes into Miami and beats the Hurricanes next year.
That'll definitely be interesting. But all right, man, I'm gonna get to cooking these burgers here.
Yeah, you cook your burgers. I think I'm gonna cook a fish sandwich myself. We'll talk later.
All right, and
enjoy
everyone
your
out
weekend.
there. Yep.
And
Have
thanks
a good
for
weekend.
listening to Under the Bleachers. We'll be back next week with an NFL mock draft.